Oh, what an exciting guest we have on today, guys. We have on writer-director Josh Monkarsh. Josh, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I
So,
appreciate it.
congratulations on your theatrical run here of As We Know It. I actually wanted to talk to you about that and get a little bit about like your journey and what brought you
Yeah,
to this film.
yeah. It's a journey that started about 6 years ago, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was I had optioned the script as we know it. It was a UK based writer,
Okay.
and the script was great. It was more UK based humor.
Okay.
Um, so I knew when I optioned it, I had to make some modifications, for US humor, right? Not only that, there actually was no zombie element at all.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah. So that's something that we actually added in. And it was still like you still had like kind of buddy dynamic, the bromance between James and Bruce. That definitely was
Yeah.
still there. But there wasn't as big of like a love triangle kind of a situation that
Okay.
you see in the final product. So really it was a 6 year long process, and I actually didn't pick it up again until COVID. During the quarantining, when I realized, oh, wait a second, like this is actually a cool property that we have here. Like we could do something fun with it. And that's when the creative juices started flowing, and I brought in my writing partner, Brandon DePaulo, and Oliver Cooper actually came on as a creative consultant. So yeah, that's kind of when essentially it came into being, which was 2020. Yeah.
So in that original draft, did it have the Gen Xer vibe of the meh mentality, or was that something you guys were kind of bringing into it a little bit more?
It did and it didn't. I would say it definitely had some elements of that, but more, I would say, like British influenced.
Yeah.
Like if I want to say like Hugh Grant in About a Boy,
Okay.
um, versus what we have now, which is um, you know, Cameron in Ferris Bueller.
Right.
Um, Forgive
Yeah.
me, I can't think of
No,
his name.
that's a good vibe. Yeah. That's a really great description actually. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I feel like this guy can be me on the wrong day. I'm just not getting out of bed. This is where we're
Totally.
at. Yeah. No, I get it. So, originally was set in the 90s, or did you guys kind of bring that into it?
That was brought in. Um,
Okay.
that was brought in. Yeah, it was kind of when we first picked it up, it was technically could be at any time. But they
Yeah.
did have cell phones in the script, and there was a lot of texting going on. And I knew as a creator, I wanted to get rid of that right away,
Right.
um, just because I just thought it was like a creative deterrent.
Put them in a box, eliminate kind of that external
Yeah.
communication and put the pressure on. Yeah, I love that. And you're seeing a lot more of that now too. Like I've done several interviews of recent theatrical releases and indies, and a lot of them are going back to like 70s horror,
Yeah,
80s thrillers, some slash. So everybody's kind of going back because they want to get rid of that element of it's so easy to just call 911 now.
so
And
easy.
yeah, just put people in a box and see how they behave. I think can be a lot more fun and show that humanity that we're all striving to see.
Yeah, it kind of takes us back, at least, like with my generation, we kind of grew up in the 90s, so I was able to kind of get the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We had, right, like we had the antiquated start
Yeah.
in terms of our tech. But then as the late 90s rolled around, those Nokia cell phones came out, and it was like, oh, okay. And then we all,
Yeah.
so kind of had the best of both worlds, I would say.
I think you're right. We were the last generation to learn how to type on a typewriter.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, so we are really that kind of that bridge generation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, between the old and the new school, and we just get ignored just like we were when we were kids.
No, for sure, man. And it sucks because like you said, like analog is back, right? So
Hmm.
it's cool now, right?
Yeah.
So it's always nice to be reminded of that. Like, for example, when I go in, with my kids, if we go to like Urban Outfitters, you could see now like 90s is a theme. Like there's mushroom print shirts and like
Oh my God.
Nirvana thing, like mass produced Nirvana shirts. So it's like it hurts a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, you're like, your dad used to wear elephant pants. I'm not trying to brag.
Right. Right.
But
Exactly.
well, let's talk about the casting, man. You got some great talent on here. Taylor Blackwell, I know she's been in a lot of stuff. And then I'm
She's
looking
great.
at you got Pam Grier, Chris Parnell
Yep.
coming in the story as well. So walk me through your casting.
Yeah. So as mentioned, Oliver Cooper, he was kind of involved from the get-go. You know, when I was writing this and rewriting this, I
Yeah.
just saw him in my head.
So you
Huge.
saw him as the best friend
I
right
did,
away,
yeah,
brought
right
him in
away.
for kind of like notes or creative influence.
Yeah, yeah. So he was actually already doing a movie with my brother-in-law. Um, so I hit him up that way. But yeah, like I'm a huge fan of Project X.
Yeah.
I thought, as the best friend in that movie, he killed it. And so
I thought he killed it in Mindhunter when
Mindhunter, yeah.
he played Berkowitz, and
Oh
Berkowitz was
yeah,
crazy scary, and that was him. I mean,
totally different side.
yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's Oliver. And then
Wow.
yeah, and then Taylor was next. Actually, one of Taylor's mutual friends we had in mind for the role, and then we actually found Taylor via that person. And we kind of I just loved, she has a very overall 90s vibe to her.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah, she
um,
looked like she stepped out of the 90s when I watched her walk on screen. I was
yeah,
like, wow, that's crazy. From the
oh,
haircut to the
totally.
necklace. Yeah.
And that's her, more or less. That was her hair at the time.
Wow.
We didn't really change a lot with her. And Zoe did a great job with wardrobe with her. And then it's interesting with Mike Castle. We actually had a Canadian actor originally cast for that role. We had a lot of issues with getting the actor to the United States due to
Oh,
passport,
yeah.
regulations and all that not so fun stuff. But I was really lucky. We had one of my co-producers sent me a link to Mike's information, Mike's page, his IMDb page. And that was literally the only other option. It was this Canadian dude who was great in his own right, and Mike. And
Wow.
the second I saw Mike, I'm like, okay, this is it, right? So like that's one of those situations where everything happens for a reason. And then with Chris and Pam, I'm a huge fan of Chris's work from his stint on SNL.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and also with Pam, I grew up watching her films. Probably the lesser of the popular ones. Like I love her role in Escape from LA. And,
Oh, wow. Deep cut.
Carjack Malone. Um, Thought she killed it in that. Um, and so like that was for me like, okay, this is so exciting to be able to work. And Ghost of Mars too. That was um, one of her other more like cool roles that she did. So that was like huge. The second that we found out that Pam was down, that was like a game changer. Um, and then I realized with Chris and Pam, you know, we had to kind of be smart about how we use them in terms of their day
Yeah,
to
of
day,
course. Yeah.
right? So there was a lot of last minute editing. Like for example, with Pam, we only had her for one day.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we had to kind of just like cram a lot in. Chris, we had 2 days with him. But yeah, no, we just made it work.
That's awesome. So getting this thing going, was it difficult to find funding? I mean, you hear so many stories about funding falling through last minute.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is one of those things where like we were lucky in that the moment that we started getting, some more well-known names
Yeah.
attached, like with Pam and Chris, we were able to attract that value. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, and it's interesting because you kind of as a creator, you have to go down that path of like, how do you monetize this thing to appease, the financial side
Right.
versus, check all the boxes in your creative mind in terms of what works, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like a slippery slope because, sure, like originally the names that I might have gone out for didn't have as big of star power as Chris and Pam. It could have maybe still worked, sure, but like
Yeah.
I don't think the funding aspect would have worked as well,
Yeah.
uh, had we gone that other route. So, as a filmmaker, I'm sure like just, based on your interviews, like that's just a part of the process.
It is, and it's hard. You're trying to get a film going, and then you say Pam Grier, and they go, oh, then you
Right.
go comedy, you go Chris Parnell, and then now they're invested.
Not
So
right. Yeah.
yeah, there's that kind of catch 22 of trying to get the star and then trying to make it
Yep.
happen. So you made this thing, you've had a theatrical run. I mean, what's next?
So, it's interesting. I was talking to Oliver about this, and you know, he has this like kind of gung ho mentality, like, what's the next one? And for me, like, I want to really think about the next one very carefully and slowly develop it versus, punch it out, right?
Yeah,
And I do have a script that I optioned.
awesome.
It's yeah, I can't. It is going to be the next one for sure.
Hmm.
What I can tell you is like it's a twist on Romeo and Juliet.
I love
It,
those.
yeah, based most likely in the 1970s.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That one I hope to shoot in September of 24.
See, I'm seeing in my mind, I'm seeing a Warriors version of Romeo and Juliet, which would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
uh so what kind of advice do you have for filmmakers out there that are really trying to get going and make something happen?
Well, it's tricky because as a creator, you're always going to think like your, creative message and your creative vision is it, right?
Yeah.
What I've learned, from the time that I graduated film school is you really need outside advice and help, and it's almost impossible to do it on your own. And that's kind of one thing I did different with this project versus back in the day when I was the director, the cinematographer,
Hmm.
the crafty, you know, post-production supervisor. Like it was too much. And so by like letting go and being open to advice and criticism, it actually is a recipe for success.
Nice.
Well, at the very least, it's a recipe to get the movie made.
Yeah.
What happens after that is, up to fate, but yeah.
Well, you've optioned a few scripts. They're getting made. So let me ask you, because I'm sure the audience really wants to know this. What are you looking for when you're reading a script and you go, this is the one, I'm optioning this one?
Yeah. For me, it's characters.
Okay.
It's right away. Like if I'm interested and if I want to know more about the characters and the dynamic that's on the page, and I'm intrigued that way, um, then I'm in, versus some, producers, they'll be reading, or directors, they'll be reading uh material, and if they see an explosion, it's like, oh, that's it. We need more explosions.
Car
You know,
crash. Yeah,
they
exactly.
crash, like, oh, cool, cool, cool. This is the one. So I'm kind of
Yeah,
like the opposite in that way. Like I want to focus on the character dynamics first, and then we can add the explosions later if
right.
necessary.
So this script was about really, it was very much about relationships, best friend relationships and dynamics and themes around that. You had the love triangle theme. Is that something that you like to play with in your work?
For sure. I think anytime you can create a situation that kind of mirrors real life dynamics, you're going to get through to at least 75% of the audience, because, you
Yeah.
know, unfortunately, you have people who do have these types of experiences where, the best friend is hooked up with the girlfriend
Oh,
or the
sure.
ex-girlfriend. It happens every day.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of the first notes that we got. Like, are you guys sure you want to do that? Like, that's not realistic. The dude, hooks up with the other dude's best friend. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's
Oh,
happened.
it
Like,
happens.
yeah, like, yeah, like high school, my personal experiences, it happened every day. So,
Yeah.
um, right. So like that was for me, being able to kind of create this dynamic that really kind of resonates with the audience, even if they don't want to talk about it. It's like, okay, that might have happened to me, but like, I'm not going to talk about it. But, they can resonate it with it visually, at the very least.
Well, I love that you dealing with that during a zombie apocalypse. And I got to tell you, the zombies look great. Like I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of indie films where zombies are questionable.
yeah, yeah.
These are like fantastic special effects.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was one area where we're like, we know we're poking fun at the genre, but we want to make them believable.
Yeah,
So thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, that was definitely well thought through. And we didn't
yeah.
have a lot of time either to prep. So it was definitely crunch time, man, like on set.
Really?
Oh yeah, like
Wow, they look
the
great.
city of LA is so strict, and film LA, and once you clock in, like you're on the clock, and you want
Yeah.
to avoid overtime. So like it was a lot of moving back and forth, but the fact that you thought they looked good, that
Oh
made it
yeah.
all worth it.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, and then you have some comedic zombies in there, which I don't want to spoil,
Yeah.
because I thought that was really cute. And no animals are harmed, thank God, which is nice.
No,
Um,
no animals
well,
harmed.
ish. All right. So,
Yeah.
um, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
Um, no, I mean, off the top of my head, no. I mean, I would say like just maybe a general takeaway
Yeah.
that I would, you know, kind of as a message to the audience. Um, yes, this is a zom-com, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you kind of hinted at, it's really more about the dynamics, the
Yeah.
friendship, right? The love, the loss, coming of age, if you will. And for me, like that's kind of the goal. That was the goal, at least, as a filmmaker, was to express and conceive that message, and to, you know, hopefully have that message resonate with the audience. Sure, I want them to have laughs, that's essentially that was the point of the movie.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like a John Hughes film. Like that's the goal, right? Like you're laughing, but at the same time, you kind of get the warm and fuzzies a little bit too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's in theaters now, right?
It is, yeah. It's in theaters at Lemley, Santa Monica. And
Nice.
then it's actually going to be it's in Boston, Apple Cinemas in
That's
Cambridge,
awesome.
Mass, and then going to be in Calabasas in December.
And it's going streaming too, or?
Yeah, we actually just got our streaming date. I think I don't know if I can tell you, but what I can say is I'm trying to think like what they told me to say about this. It's coming in
It's
December.
coming. Well, that's good. Yeah. As
Yeah.
we know, it will be streaming if you can't make it to the theatrical release, which is awesome.